everyone, and welcome back to the Sorry I Don't podcast, where this week we are reviewing 500 Days of Summer. We are a film podcast, and every week or so we review a film that's maybe ridiculous, maybe amazing, but you'll find out here on the Sorry I Don't podcast.
Since I told people we were doing this podcast, I've gotten a lot of like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And he was like, oh, I've seen this film, it's about shite in it. And Swanny was like, yeah, this film's about shit, man. But when he was watching it, he was like, oh, that's so me.
No. May as well have watched 500 actual Days of Summer because we went through 500 days of Swanny's relationship.
Yeah. You are too much.
Just seem a bit mental, man.
Yeah.
Like, too much. Tone it back.
Not cool enough and too shy.
So, 500 Days of Summer. Swanny, give it. Oh, yeah, I should introduce us. I'm Claude.
And I'm Swanny.
And I'm Abby.
So, we're your hosts. 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah, so 500 Days of Summer, a 2009 American romantic comedy, directed by Mark Webb. So, and only recently found out Mark Webb directed this, but he also directed The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which there's only two.
I like those films.
Well, we're not reviewing
Well, I've only
them.
seen the first one. But like, I liked that film when I was, what was it, like 15 or something?
I didn't like the second one.
I've never seen it. Is that the Tobey Maguire ones?
No, these are the Andrew Garfield ones.
Oh, I like them. They're good.
I don't like the second one.
You seem like the kind of guy who wouldn't like Andrew Garfield anyway.
I like him. I
Do you?
don't like him in his superhero stuff, but I like him when he does. He's really good in like Scorsese film Silence, and he's really good in.
Anyway,
I was going to try and swing it back there since we're off topic. I was going to say he kind of takes the roles that Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a lesser casting director's hands would get, which is very thankful to me because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is very okay.
very okay.
Very okay as an actor. He's a 6 out of 10 of actors on a good day.
I think he's alright. He's fine.
That's
So,
what I'm saying.
500 Days of Summer. It stars, as we know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
And our names escape me.
Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel.
Yay.
What was your first viewing of 500 Days of Summer like? When was it?
So my first full viewing was watching it with you guys.
Oh.
I had seen it before. Well, I'd seen half of it before and put it off. And it was one of those films that, you know, you'd hear people talking about it. It was a subject of a lot of essays, or a lot of people like making articles
There was
about
discourse.
it. Yeah, because basically, obviously, the film is very much a lot of people on first viewing would be like, oh yeah, the male lead, oh, he's such a what a misunderstood guy, and then when you watch it in retrospect, everyone's like, oh my god, he was the worst guy ever.
This is Incel the musical.
Yeah, which is why it works really well to look back, and it is quite ridiculous and quite silly how bad a guy this guy can be, which makes it interesting to watch again. But I'd never really seen all of it, only parts.
Mm-hmm. So what about you?
Yeah, I saw this film when I was younger and like loved it obviously because it was so my vibe. Like it was the Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing and like the music and the vibe and Zoe Deschanel. Obviously, I was a huge fan of like New Girl and all that sort of stuff. But I saw it again and it was that kind of thing where like people were talking about it more and things, and I watched it again when I was maybe like 20 kind of age, and I was like, yeah, this film sucks, it's the worst, like this film was awful. And obviously, like you said, everyone's opinion changed around so that like instead of her being seen as the kind of like, you know, the villain, it was him. And then watching it this time, it was weird. I think because in my head I just remembered it being as like absolutely shocking. I was like, okay, this film does have like its merits. Like I still think that the soundtrack is class. The setting's really cool. Like there are nice bits to it if it is like a little bit twee sometimes, and like he obviously is just absolutely shocking. But you know, you go, you live a life, you experience things, and there's different points in the film where you can kind of understand where either of them are coming from.
Oh, definitely.
And like what I thought was interesting is that obviously everyone's like, yeah, this film's really toxic. And then I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt at some point had said, like, I don't know whether it's recently or I just came across it recently, but he was like, you're missing the point of the film if you're rooting for my character.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't realise how much the film isn't necessarily saying that he's the protagonist.
Yeah, they're
It's
not
not-
siding with him.
Yeah, the film is like a lot more balanced than I remembered it being from my second viewing.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of thought they really put him on a pedestal, but to be honest,
They don't.
They do
yeah.
probably show more of both
More,
sides.
more
of
both
it.
sides. I think the issue inherently though is as soon as you make a film from the point of view of a problematic character, it can be very easily misinterpreted of them not being or that is actually trying to advocate for them. So I can see why the confusion maybe came about.
Yeah.
But I think it is. You're right. It is more balanced than the rhetoric would give it credence to be.
And it's a film that benefits from nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
yeah.
this came out, you know, it was just a modern film. And now it's like,
a time capsule.
there's Zooey Deschanel in her heyday, and remember when everyone fancied Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and all the music is from that sort of time period, and like that sort of style, and
Just the way they talk and they act, it's all
Yeah.
very.
it feels like a product of its time, and that's something we can probably appreciate more
Yeah,
now.
totally. Because it was a
Yeah.
film. I'd have seen it or parts of it when I was like a teenager, like 13 maybe 12.
When did it come out again?
2009.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was very much like okay, it's one of those films, you know. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I remember folk going to the cinema to see it. You know, be like, we're hanging out with our pals. We're all 13. Let's go to the cinema and watch this film. But I don't think I went that time. I saw it on TV later. I saw the Step Up. Saw that at the cinema.
Step Up.
Yeah, the dancing one with Channing Tatum.
Great.
I know. Again, another actor who I would cast over Joseph Gordon-Levitt in most
In
things.
this film,
Yeah, that'd be funny. Imagine it was Channing Tatum. It'd be so obvious that he was a dick.
Channing Tatum just being like, oh yeah, I love the Smiths.
Yeah, no, it'd be so funny.
I don't
though.
know if I buy that.
No. Yeah, that and the rest of them are Muppets. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing to this film. That'd be amazing. Anyway,
So my first viewing of this film was, so I did it for like either my like third or fourth year, I think, English class. And
cool.
yeah, so I've watched it like
You've
upwards of
studied it.
20 times. I've studied it. And it was interesting because my English teacher, she was like quite a young English teacher, and she was very like pro-feminist, very kind of like, she was like, you know how a lot of young teachers are kind of like terrified of students. She was like a bit terrifying, but also really easy to get along with and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
from how I remember it, I think she just showed us the film and was like, right, this is what we're going to write about, and then kind of got everybody's opinions of it. And then everybody was obviously like, she's like a bitch, you know, she's just kind of leading them on, blah, blah, blah. And she was just immediately like, no, lies, none of you's got it, idiots.
He's failed the test.
And then like we kind of studied what basically the whole thing is about, a kind of unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of the more kind of technical English side of why
Yeah.
she was showing it to us. Because she was like, yeah, you have that in like media and plays and literature all the time. And especially the kind of, there's a scene later on where we get a scene where they very kind of blatantly are like, this is how he pictured this was going to go in his head, and this is how it actually went,
yeah.
to be like, this is how unreliable his storytelling really is. Because this film has a narrator as well, but it, like the narrator isn't kind of around all the time, so they're like, this is kind of like Tom's story, but it's not necessarily like how the story actually
Yeah.
went. So with that, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed at the time, like all, because even I was like, I'm a fucking bitch. And then it had quite a, because obviously I know it's not a super intellectual film or anything, but for like a 14-year-old or whatever, it makes you kind of go, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
there is-
incels are shite.
Yeah, there's watching it there and seeing it like as it actually like was. It's quite. There is definitely a level of it's trying to say something. It's clearly there's an intellectual level to it as opposed to just being, you know, something silly, which is fine. Things can just be something silly, but this one is silly, but does seem to have a little bit of a hey, we're trying to through the art of this film's, you know, chopping back and forth the timelines, showing you one version of a thing, showing you another, really, you know, like dance sequences, almost fantastical moments, is kind of trying to be like, there's a point here.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It could have maybe done it a bit more, like maybe some more of those. This is what actually happened, as opposed to what he thinks happened. I'd have really liked a lot more of that.
Yeah.
But I get, you can only do so much. Otherwise, it becomes less the mainstream sort of romantic comedy you want it to be.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know if it's just me having already seen it loads of times and studied it, but I feel like if you're going to watch it once and then be like, yeah, it's a bit of a shite film, then you haven't really got the point of it.
Yeah.
Not that I think it's like amazing. It's not like going to get a 10 out of 10 from me, but like it is, especially for a kind of developing mind, quite an interesting film to
I think this and
take
Barbie
points
would
from.
be quite good double bills.
Yeah.
This and Barbie would be quite a good doubler.
So 500 Days of Summer, for the purposes of this podcast, the plot's going to be kind of different from how it would actually be portrayed in the film, because like you said, it chops and changes. So the 500 days are shown at different times. So it'll be like day 27, day like 400, and then the next one is like day 3. So it doesn't it's not a linear film.
And also, spoilers, it doesn't cover 500 days of summer. It covers about,
Would you want it to?
yeah, go for it. You're going to call your film that? Fucking give me all of it. Give me.
But it spans 500 days. It's 500 days in total.
I understand.
The film 127 hours isn't 127 hours long.
Would it maybe been better if it was?
This is common man. Every single film, you're like,
Cut 20 minutes
no,
off that,
listen.
cut 40
Sorry,
off that.
to clarify, I don't want this movie to be 500 days long. Let's just clarify that. No, I'd just like maybe at least to give me the impression that we're getting every one of the days, even just one image for every day. That would have been nicer.
What, like a wee slideshow?
Well, the
You want our film to be a wee
The film
slideshow?
is basically already threatening to become a montage for most of the time, so fucking just do it.
Yeah, a montage and a slideshow aren't the same thing. Are we going to argue about things not
They
being the
could-
same
they
thing
could-
again?
They're similar.
They're similar. I never said that. I said they weren't the same thing. But they're not. They have two different words for them,
but
aren't they?
but they're similar enough to.
Oh, but they're similar. But are they the same?
They're close.
Close,
They're,
but
they're
the same?
synonymous.
Yeah, no.
No, I don't
A
want it to
slideshow
be.
of images is not the same as a montage
No, I
of different
want one
clips of
shot.
footage.
One shot that lingers. Do you know when? Do you know the bits when they do him like hitting the alarm and going back to bed?
Yeah.
Give me that for 400 days, please. That'd be really funny.
That would be 400 Days of Swanny.
Aye. Why? 400? Nah. No. Austin being quiet. Actually, I was about to lie.
Claude phoned you yesterday at like 10:30 in the morning and was like, right, we're thinking, maybe not 10:30, but 11 o'clock. And she was like, right, we're thinking about getting lunch. And you were like, give me a specific time. And then she was like, 2 o'clock. And you were like, okay. And then at the end of the call, Claude was like, Jinx Pony's all right. You just sounded a bit weird at the end there. I was like, that is the sign of a man already going back to sleep.
And then said man showed up 40 minutes late.
I slept through my alarm and I woke up like fuck. Also, you said 2 o'clock ish, so I hope that the ish was giving me a lot of leeway.
Why would you?
I said 2, half
I woke
2,
up late.
2 o'clock-ish, and then you went 2 o'clock, and I went, yeah, 2 o'clock.
And I said, you should have said 2:30.
And then you would have only been 10 minutes late.
Or I might have got there at 20 past 3.
No, that's what I mean. Claude should have told you 2:30 for it being 3 o'clock. No, for it being.
Half 1.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
Yes.
Now I do.
So, 500 Days of Summer. We've got Tom and Summer, who are Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. And Tom he's the main character. We see most of the story through his perspective, if not all of it.
He is the unreliable narrator.
He is the unreliable narrator. Tom works at a company that writes cards. They kind of design and they write the slogans in the middle of cards.
Does seem quite a cool place to work.
Does it?
They're definitely overstaffed though.
We can't go down a whole other like Empire Records rabbit hole of trying to pick apart like
I'm not gonna.
the inner
The
workings of this
staffing.
company.
my
But like
God.
how is it not just like he doesn't only write the inside of greeting cards, but they have different departments. Like at one point in the film, they're like, we're going to move you from celebrations into condolences. And I'm like, how do you need more than one person to write like
So
2
sorry.
lines inside a...
Yeah, I wonder how accurate that is. I kind of wish I'd done a deep
Yeah, I was
delve
just about to
into
say,
it.
maybe we're just being totally ignorant and there is like loads of different departments.
Well, he's a copywriter essentially, but like I would assume that a company like that, you would maybe have like,
Well, you'd have a team.
He writes the inside of the cards, but also he writes like, maybe some social media content. No, that was really a thing back then, but like press releases, some other kind of writing job.
Or like, there's like 8 of them. It's like, okay, this week you're going to do these cards, you're going to do that. It's not a separate department though.
Yeah. Or
it's
even
just
if he was like designing the card or pitching ideas for cards, but they make the idea that like they just have a birthday card of like some balloons he's like,
it's so bureaucratic.
Happy birthday.
There's such a bureaucracy in place. It's like, right, okay, so you're going to be picking the words, but you're going to be picking, this guy's going to be picking the design, but make sure you collaborate with the actual design team, because they're also influenced by the greeting cards sector of the. It's just like too many layers of like people trying to make a fucking shit card.
Yeah, like obviously spoilers for the film, but you have Tom, who like eventually Summer dumps him, and his boss pulls him up because he's just wrote like "fuck you, you whore" in a greeting card, and then he's like, "I'm gonna move you over."
This is a guy that people thought was the good guy. just to clarify that.
And he's like, yeah, I'm moving you over to sympathy cards, as if like number one, that's a thing, and number two, that "fuck you, you whore" would work better in a sympathy card.
Yeah. We think what people need for their beloved one's funeral is for you to just cuss
Berate
them out. Berate them. Hey, glad you're dead, whore.
Why does that kind of feel like something you would buy someone though who'd been bereaved, and then be like, "I'm so sorry, I thought it was funny. I thought I'd try and bring some."
The thing is, I do that sometimes with like family members.
You do that with what?
With cards. So like, I'll get them the wrong cards. Like for their birthday, I'll get.
I thought you meant like. I thought you meant specifically for condolence cards.
I think I did once with like a cousin or something, but it was funny. It was fine. Maybe I did. Did I dream it?
Did I dream it?
Did you just make that up?
Did you just make that's a wee fib?
It could be a wee fib, but it feels like I did it. Oh no! It was when my sister. It's when my sister broke her arm.
Oh, so you've had enough time to think of a lie.
Absolutely, I've had enough time. Kerry, back me up, please. I'm often giving you silly, funny cards that aren't inappropriate for the time.
Yeah, but not a condolence card.
For maybe.
You're trying to argue it's like condolences for your broken arm.
Well, get well, but instead of get well, it was condolences for your arm. I think that's the joke.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, well, definitely a lie. Moving on. So we've got
roll bluff and diplomacy, please.
Rolled a fucking -4.
-4 to bluffs in this context. -10s to bluffs in this context.
So Tom's working at this greeting card company. It's a bit like
Was that a fib? You're a dick.
I didn't say that.
Was it you? Oh, it was cunty chops. Can't say that. Was it you? Oh, aye. Tracks.
So, Tom's a bit disillusioned with working in this. It's not his dream, basically, is to write greeting cards for a living. He studied to be an architect.
Ugh.
So to display this, he's just constantly drawing skylines. And we made the point of being like, that's not what architects do. They don't design entire cities. It's just one guy.
Yeah, it's not Sim Cities. Like he's not, you're not getting the permission to remodel the skyline, mate. No matter how much you try. Like, and that's all he does with it. And he just talks. Oh yeah, I want to be an architect. Oh, what would you design? Oh, I draw skylines. It's like,
what, so you draw rectangles.
So you do
the easiest thing to draw.
You do graphic design. Okay, that's cool, but that's not an architect.
But also, like, he points at, like, they sit at this place in the park with a really nice view of the city, and he's like, I would rip this building out and I would really make the most of the natural light here. And he's like drawing what he would do. And I'm like, in what situation is any architect who's never worked as an architect before just being told like, oh mate, here's a bit of New York we've not finished yet. Just have a crack at it. What would you put there? Like,
rip it out.
See all this like famous New York skyline. See you, fucking Billy Nobody. Do you want to just come and redesign the entire thing based on what you think looks nice?
Also, the idea that the skyline is the important part of architectural structure. Fuck the bottom of the building. Fuck the bit that's holding everything up.
Yeah, man.
Only need the top.
I think it's really a metaphor that this guy can't build foundations. in any of his relationships. And so all he sees is the beautiful picture. Oh my God, it is. All he sees is the beautiful picture of the skyline, the beautiful image of, oh my God, I want to be in architecture, but without actually knowing, I want love, but without actually knowing how to build a relationship with someone effectively.
I'm glad to know that you are at Nat 5 level English, man.
Oh yeah.
After that 7-year degree.
Sorry. Standard grade English, because I'm old as well.
As thick.
Challenged, shall we say.
So he's a bit disillusioned with this whole thing, but then it's all happened to us before. This beautiful lassie walks in. It's Zooey Deschanel. He's like, immediately, oh my God, this lassie's stunning. She's the assistant to his boss, I think.
Yeah, she's like the secretary or something.
Yeah, she's a secretary. And he's like, immediately, obviously, like, this is the love of my life. Before he's even spoken to her. Which, to be fair, is one of the kind of more relatable parts, I think.
Yeah,
where you'd
absolutely.
like totally imagine an entire relationship with somebody that you work with.
Wouldn't be me.
No, it really wouldn't.
We've all been in that situation before, where you've just really fancied somebody at work, and before you've ever spoken to them.
Or just anywhere, on the street, random people. Oh, that person came in.
So like every day. You don't even have to be on the street. Sometimes we'll just be sitting on our balcony and you'll be imagining an entire life of somebody who's just like walking past.
Walking past, like wearing a big jacket. Their dogs ran away, they're scratching their arse, and I'm like, that's my wife.
That's what You're Beautiful by James Blunt's about.
Well,
I love that song.
yeah, James Blunt speaks and we listen.
He chats away.
He speaks and we listen.
So, to go through it linearly, basically, not long after she starts working there, they're both standing in the lift. He's got a bit of a indie vibe about him, I suppose, for that times. Yeah. She's got a bit of a kind of like quirky, cool girl vibe about her. They're standing in the lift. He's wearing headphones at work in the lift. Why? And he's loudly listening to the Smiths. What song is it? What
do you mean his headphones wouldn't work in the lift?
No, it's not that they wouldn't work in the lift. Why is wearing his headphones to work in the lift?
Specifically going into the lift
I
and
thought you were
sticking on
like
his headphones.
I thought you were trying to say that he wouldn't get connection in the lift. I was like, it was 2009, Claude. The songs were on an iPod.
Nah, you're just stupid, man.
Fine.
So he's kind of standing listening to the Smiths, and it's like their most famous song. I don't know what any Smiths songs are called.
Let me get what I want.
Because I pick me up. I don't know the Smiths. What's the Smiths? Never heard of that.
No, I don't love the Smiths.
And she's like, oh, I love the Smiths. And he like
fucks it.
Yeah,
he just go, yeah. He's like, mate.
And then that's it set. That's the perfect manic pixie dream girl thing, isn't it? That you don't know anything about somebody, but you're just like, oh, she likes a quirky, edgy band. Given that means that I'm in love with her, I suppose.
Yeah. Because before this as well, he obviously thought she was attractive, and then he's like telling his friends like she's like a bitch because he smiles at her and she doesn't see it or like doesn't smile back, or he's like, hey, how was your weekend? And she's like, oh, hi. And so he's like, she's the worst. And then they have that moment in the lift and he's like, wait a second, she must be worthy of me because she likes a song by a band that's really popular. Honestly, like,
and honestly,
it's not niche.
No.
Like,
but also how that's happened so much, like that sort of that interaction, like a guy just.
This is the thing, because that does suck. However, if I'm like talking to a guy that like is not like immediately appearing to me to be attractive, and then we have like music artists that we like in common, he will instantly become like 3 times more attractive.
Yeah, no, I get that. But I mean specifically it happened to women. Like a woman likes a band. Like, that's happened to you so much. Like your dad really did you wrong by showing you all these good bands. Like, man, set you up to fail. and then you watch Zooey Deschanel and you're like, oh, I'll wear something like that. And then suddenly, I love Pearl Jam, and boom, that's you.
Well,
this is
the thing. Since I've told people we're doing this podcast, I've gotten a lot of like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, I fear going into this that I was going to get compared more to Joseph Gordon-Levitt than Summer. But I mean, I don't know which one's worse. But like, I know which one's worse, but I don't know which one's worse for people to compare you to. If that makes sense.
I'd much rather be Summer than Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
And yeah, no, 100%. But in terms of whether or not they mean it as an insult, I guess it depends on their interpretation of the film.
It's either you're such a carefree, lovely girl, or you're such a bitch, man. That makes sense. Oh God.
So speaking of that happened like when she like doesn't smell back at him and he calls her a bitch. That actually happened to me.
I remember this.
So like
in Carlisle.
No,
at university.
At university.
Twice then.
When did somebody call? Oh fuck! It did happen in Carlisle. Why does that happen twice to me? So in first year of uni, it's so similar. I was walking past. I was gonna go into one of my lectures, and like I was in quite a big class because I did nursing, and there was this huge queue outside the lecture hall, and I walked past this guy, and he like tried to say hello to me, and I didn't hear him because I had earphones in, and he called me a bitch because he'd been like, "Oh hi," and I was like, "What did you say?" And he was like, "Oh nothing, it's okay." And I was like, "Did you call me a bitch? I didn't fucking hear you." Like what the fuck? And then same thing happened in Carlisle, but I think that was more like a psychotic thing.
Yeah, that guy was not right.
He was just kind of standing on his own in the middle of like a completely empty dance floor. Like it was a pub.
But we went the second night and it was crammed. So it was also a big place.
Yeah.
Just nobody goes out on a Friday.
Yeah, it was huge. And it was me and Abby and then this one guy. And he was just kind of standing on his own, kind of like dancing to himself. It was like 9 p.m.
It was weird.
Clearly out his tits on something. And I walked past to go to the bathroom and he'd shouted bitch at me. But I had done nothing. I had just been in his space. So I must just have.
It's happened before. I mean, I've seen it happen. You walk past people in bars and I'm behind you and you don't hear it. And I'm like, what, mate, what are you saying? And he's like, oh, is that your pal? And I'm like, aye. Shut up.
I think what happened as well is that he was like obviously dancing by himself, acting like a maniac, and he was kind of going like way and everything, and I think he was doing that at you to try and involve you, but like he could just been doing that anyway for like an hour, so how are you meant to know that was directed at you?
Fucking man.
Oh man.
Often been quoted a bitch.
Often been quoted getting accosted by strangers in Carlisle.
So yeah, he's like decided that he's in love with her. And then they go on, they go on their work night out next? Is that?
Yeah, they go for like a kind of work drinks thing and he's like, oh, I'm not going to go. And his pal's like, no, everyone is going.
And then he's like, oh, that'll be my kind of chance to try and chat up Summer. So they go to this bar.
Once again. I can't talk. Like, this is the thing. I want to be like, this guy is the worst through all of this, but I've done a lot of this.
Yeah. Same.
I just haven't responded to it in the same way as him.
That's the issue.
From the point of view of him, like, having a crush on her and, like...
These are all normal things.
Yeah,
these are all fine things. These things happen.
Yeah.
But it's the whole incel-y sort of entitlement of it.
Yes. Okay.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
And funny. And also, it's not like he's the anomaly. It's not like he is, he's the cringe guy and all his pals are trying to help him out. His pals are probably worse. Like they've got the worst patter ever. I can't even quote a single bit of patter that they have, and they say a lot of stuff, and it's no funny, and it's no engaging, and it's just annoying. And
I want to use that as our podcast like tagline.
Nay patter.
They said a lot of stuff, didn't even remember any of it. Fucking no funny dicks.
So they go to this work night out, and basically Tom and Summer have this conversation about what love means, and she's being super manic pixie dream girly because she's like, oh, love doesn't exist. What are you talking about? I don't believe in love. And he's like, it's literally like Satine and Christian and Moulin Rouge, where she's like, I don't need love, and he's like, all you need is love, because he's like, yeah, no, of course love exists, and she's like, how? It's just all a lie, isn't it? It's just for cards, like we do, isn't it? That's what it's all about. I could never be in love with somebody. I've tried it before and it just hasn't worked out. And he's like, oh, but for me,
but what about me? It's for me.
And then but at the same time, he's got the worst pal hanging out with him. This
guy sucks the most.
This guy, he's just getting absolutely stocious drunk and just being a menace. Like, he's just like asking very leading questions. I think at some point he just goes to her and is like, my pal fancies you, by the way. I suppose everybody's had a pal like that, but he's got like weird...
Yeah, no charm.
Yeah, because he's just like, oh my God, you don't want relationships? You're a boy. You're a dude. And I'm like...
What year is it?
No, because this guy is doing the opposite to that. It's like, it's not a guy thing to be like, I have commitment issues. There are lots of women like that. I mean, this is going to become the roast of Abby, isn't it? But like, what I'm saying is, unless we're just referring to people that I've been out with, there are a mixture of men and women who do that.
Yeah. I mean, this guy sucks. He actually kind of gives him a moment though. So they kind of do karaoke, and I think that she sings some song that he's like, oh, what's she like, you know? Yeah,
it's very kind of like cutesy.
Yeah.
And then, do you know what? I'm going to be honest. I think one of my favourite bits or performance from him in this is when he gets up and does the karaoke.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the one moment in this film where I'm like, oh yeah, I see why she would be attracted to him, like, you know, by the end of this night. Because up until now, he's just been a bit of a wet blanket.
Yeah.
And I kind of would struggle to see, especially when she takes that point of view, that she's just like looking to have experiences and looking for something more exciting in her life. That's why she's moved to New York and all this kind of thing. I'm like, if you didn't like him enough to like want to stay with him, why would you bother spending time with this guy?
Yeah.
Based on what you've seen so far.
But then
and then when he does the karaoke and he's like, you know,
what is he singing again?
I can't remember what it is he sings, but he's like doing a good performance of being like someone who's like drunk but kind of in a fun way. Like he does, spoilers, he does karaoke later on a date when he's like steaming drunk and heartbroken, and it's just like viscerally cringe.
Yeah.
Again, a good performance, but like viscerally cringe.
Yeah.
But in this moment, I'm like, nah, this is the most res he's got probably in the
Is it
entire
Here
film.
Comes Your Man? Does he sing that?
Yes, that's it. Because you had a moment. This is when we paused the film for about 3 hours because you were like reminiscing.
I love that song and have very fun memories of that song. Which I'm not going to go into on the podcast right now.
No.
But what we should actually say is that it took us so long to get to this film. We may as well have watched 500 actual Days of Summer because we went through 500 days of Swanny's relationships. But we got the extra 478 days just listening to Swanny. But the film obviously, like, it obviously brings up feelings. I mean, on this podcast alone, how many times have we taken the piss out of something being related to an experience that I've had? But also just watching it, it took us so long to get through because it was bringing up so much like stuff.
Yeah,
it's like this fucking guy. Oh, do you remember when this used to be a thing? Oh, remember when this? Yeah, very much. And I think that's part of the power of it, as you said earlier, about the nostalgia that comes with it.
Yeah,
because it is set in 2009, and that seems modern.
Yeah,
as you said. But as you go into it, now looking back on it, like 15 years later, like it is a time capsule of that specific period, like just before the internet really blows up, but it's no longer the 90s. You know, things are...
Do you know what's actually interesting you say that? I just realised that every time I've watched this film, like I've come to it with different level of experience in life. Because the first time I watched it, I was a teenager. I'd never been in like a relationship. The second time I watched it, I had started a relationship, but I'd never been through a breakup. And then the third time I watched it, I've been through, you know, a couple of relationships and breakups. And it's like my opinion on it has totally changed
every time you watch it. Yeah,
that's weird, isn't it?
That's kind of why I was saying like that if you watch it once and you're like it's a bit shite, then like you should probably watch it again because you'll be like, oh no. And I think as well that if you can't watch this and see terrible aspects of these characters and see it in yourself, then you are a liar.
Then you can't do films.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be allowed to watch films.
Yeah. Because there's so many things that, albeit really cringe, was like, yeah, I've done that. It's a bit embarrassing. Definitely done karaoke with like just to kind of impress somebody that I fancy for sure. Definitely follow people about like work because I fancied them. Like a wee lost lassie.
Definitely gone on organised work nights out because I was too afraid to flirt with someone in any other capacity.
Yeah,
absolutely. And well, what was it you said? I had a funny bit that I've
just farted
again. I don't fart. What do you mean?
That's a great Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this film impersonation.
I don't fart. That is my impression of Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this film. I don't fart. Get that clipped. I don't fart. Anyway, don't know what I was going to say. Something funny. Ha ha ha.
So they have an opportunity outside because his pal's like, he really fancies you, by the way. And she's like, or well, he doesn't say fancy. He says he really likes you. And she's like, oh, you like me? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I like you too. And then they stare at each other what feels like 10 years. And then he doesn't kiss her.
Yeah, we were all like, this is the moment. Mate, you've been sitting building up like, oh, she would never give me that chance, that moment. That, me. And then literally gets it in the most explicit way possible. Not even like...
She says, do you like me?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. It's like the friend suggested it, so it's already up in the air.
Yep.
It's the end of the night, they both had a good night and they both laughed.
They both had a couple
drinks.
Yeah, they're right in front. And she's like, do you like me? Look at him with the, I'm here if you do. And he's like... as friends or something stupid like that.
Like he's just like, yeah, and just as like you're
just as friends. No, he says as friends. I'm pretty sure before she says it.
We were all screaming at the TV like, "This is the moment! This is the moment! You still have the moment! Oh, you're gonna lose the moment!" But we all tapped out at different times.
Yeah.
I tapped out first because I'm the shite bag. You tapped out like second, and then because it was when she turned and walked down the street, and you were like, "Oh, he's lost his moment." And Swanny's like, "No, he can still run after her."
If he runs now, it just goes, that was so stupid of me. Play it into like, hey man, sorry. Almost missed the moment there, but and then that could work.
Can you imagine that she's like slightly too far away, and then
There's a line. There's like a 4-step limit. Any more than
like
4 steps.
calling her back. Doesn't even go after her. It's just like, wait, come back.
It's Samar. Yeah, it was embarrassing for him. And then comes out with, yeah, I like you, as friends. And you're like, mate, you've what? Everyone, all these guys are literally saying, oh, she friend zones him. I'm like, mate, he tries really hard to do that himself.
I mean, that's such a golden moment as well, because I think that any like first kiss experiences you have had with people, like it's very rare that it comes about so like, blatant as that, as do you like me? Looking into someone's eyes. It's usually like,
you got to try and take a chance. There's a little bit of it. This could not be the vibe. And he literally has it like, this is the vibe. Like 99%, as close as you can be to a guaranteed kiss, will be reciprocated. And he goes, and then spums it. Absolutely spums it. 500 Days of Spummer. And it's this guy, Tommy Spummer. Absolutely ruining it.
So, for the purposes of the coming soon, sorry, I don't dictionary. What is spum?
I don't even know what spum is. I think it just means to absolutely.
Well, it's a noun. It's not even a verb. We've turned it into a verb.
Well, I think of it like if you spum something, it kind of means like you absolutely screw it up.
Yeah.
Like it could have been like
absolutely spummed that.
But also just something kind of gross. Like
it sounds kind of gross.
The first like instance of it was like Claude dropped a tub of like moisturizer and it kind of splattered up her leg. And so he was like, oh, spummed everywhere.
Yeah, because
The only thing I can think of now is when like the first thing Cabby said to me before we kissed, but like I don't want to just put Cabby on rinse mode. It wasn't that embarrassing. It was just that
he's sitting gripping the seat over there like, please. Like, please.
I'm not worried at all, I can edit it.
That's true.
I remember that I'd been quite smooth because we'd been sitting across the table from each other and it was a nice and sleazy's. And I was like, oh, it's so loud in here, I can't hear you. So I went over and sat next to him. And then I think we were like talking about Scottish history for some reason. I don't know.
Always a good one.
We were talking about everything. And we ended up talking about Scottish history. And I think he said something, you can correct me by the way if you want, Cammy. Something along the lines of like, well, I don't know, William Wallace didn't get to do this, so, and then just like, can't say.
That's. I'm stealing that. As someone that works in tourism and only meets new people through that, aye, okay. William Wallace never got to do this, though. Oh, brilliant.
Do you want to fact check that, Cammy, or is that quite accurate?
I can't, it probably is about right, innit?
William Wallace never got to do this. What was William Wallace famously a virgin?
I think it was more kind of, I think it was more
I love this.
It wasn't great either way.
No, but it's
It was more like it's more the idea of how many people can I think it's like how many people talk about Scottish history and then use that to get a pool or something like that. I don't know, I can't remember. Listen,
Which is exactly my point. That if Cammy can get a pull after like saying that William Wallace wouldn't ever get to pull me, then why did Tom not use the opportunity of "Do you like me?" which was basically like "Can you kiss me?"
Yeah.
There was a point to that, Cammy. I wasn't just putting you on blast for a reason.
It's relatable because like things like that are always a little bit cringe in real life, but it's still that's part of it.
Yeah.
Because the fact that someone would say that
Yes.
clearly means they like you, and you know what, this is kind of cute. This is a vibe. Because everyone ultimately, as cool as we all are, or try to be, you've got that little romantic core in you that wants someone to say something cute and cringe to you,
Yeah.
and then melt into them. You want that, and that's what Cammy did to you is Willie Wallace chat. Hey, wee Willie Wallace.
Fucking God.
Wee Willie Wally.
So, help me out here. What happens after this then in terms of like linearly? It's really difficult to...
The next day, basically, or the next Monday, they're in the photocopying room. And
Yes.
she just walks in and munches them.
Yeah, which is like
Fair play.
but also,
A bit rogue.
yeah, a bit rogue. Like, they kind of chatted a bit with his drunk pal at the night out and then he didn't kiss her. So where did
that come from?
that come from?
I mean, it'd been good if we'd seen those 7 days. Maybe we would have built up to why that would.
I suppose, though, if you think about it, like, we're talking about, obviously you were saying that all of Tom's friends are probably worse than him. Maybe it's one of those things where she's like, right, everybody here is a 50-year-old guy or like a wee misogynistic creep or you. And I think the worst, like, you're the best out of the worst bunch, basically.
And I need to actually make myself unavailable to the rest of these monsters.
Yeah, because
so I'm going to pull you.
Yeah, and she said at the beginning as well, she was like, oh, I've moved over here for like a bit of a change. So maybe she's just kind of shown up and been like, this is a bit pish.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a plot line here.
Need a wee plot line.
So she kisses him up
You
against...
can relate to.
Yeah.
Need a wee plot line from your work environment.
Yeah. The point is...
What other plot lines, yes. The point is, Abigail, you were going to get to what the point was.
The point is also, I can get it from like, she's moved to a new place, she doesn't know anyone, this guy's clearly obsessed with her, he's obviously really into her. It's like the moment is also applies to her too, because she could not have any doubts whatsoever that he is so into her.
Yeah.
He's clearly really nervous around her, and his friend is literally like, he talks about you all the time, he's like obsessed with you. It's a Monday. She's a secretary at a card that has about 50 people writing the inside of fucking birthday cards. She's gone to do some photocopying. She's like, I moved to New York for an adventure and I work here with these guys. I'm bored. It's Monday. I could just winch this guy.
It's been a week.
And he'll love it.
Absolutely. And it's just plot. It's for the plot.
Right?
In fact, fuck, she does, because we wouldn't have had a plot if it was up to fucking Tommy Spum, we'd have no plot. We'd have 500 days of him having a shit wank. And I'm so glad we didn't get that film.
Anyway.
So after that, they
They go on their... Sorry, I thought you were
no,
asking.
what would they go on their first date?
Yeah, I think so.
And they go on their first date to...
IKEA.
That's their first
Oh,
date?
they
Yeah.
suck,
I
man.
was like, oh, right, that's a bit... That's their first date.
That's their first date. And like this is one...
Wait.
That is their first date.
Yeah.
They're on their first... So, for context, to go to IKEA, it's obviously a very coupley thing to do. I'm sure everybody who's been in a couple at some point's maybe done that, you know, went to IKEA and been like, oh, imagine us in our house together one day, all that kind of thing. They not only do that, but like they just lie down in a bed and like hold each other like in an IKEA showroom bed. And then he's like, oh, honey, there's a Chinese family in our bathroom. And then she's kind of like, right, just let's not take this too seriously. And it's like, guys, where are we? What are we doing right now?
And there was like a token Chinese family just
Yeah,
watching
that
them.
bit didn't really go
Yeah, again,
over
very,
particularly
very,
well.
very 2009.
It was
You
very
know, to have
2009.
your only any people of colour just being like
punchline.
a punchline to them just being like looking surprised, and you're like, oh, yep, 2009. Hi.
So, like, this one bit, and it's weird because in a way, I think it like actually does like the dialogue in it's quite good in terms of the fact that they're both hitting it with a bit of patter, and you even said like he's kind of holding his own in this conversation because she says like
after the fucking mess he made earlier.
Because she says to him at one point, "You're pretty fun." And I was like, "No, Summer, you're fun. He's just there. He's just like kind of playing along because you're really
He's just
fun."
Ken.
Exactly, he is just Ken. But you were
Ken.
like, in fairness to him, like he's kind of like he's cut out like a good patter. He's had a couple of jokes. It's been great.
Yeah, it might not be his idea of this is the
Yeah.
vibe. He's not cultivating the vibe, but he's definitely helping it.
But there's two things about this. One, there's the fact that like this is so twee. This is so like quirky, hipstery. That this is the one bit that I don't think we have moved on enough from 2009 to find this endearing. It's just because at the time they were like, this is really going to like blow people's minds.
Yeah.
Like people are just going to love this. No one's going to ever have thought of this before. And like that is just kind of annoying. And then the other thing is as well is like this is where I'm a little bit like
What
again,
did
the way that he-
what did you expect, Summer?
yeah, the way that he responds to it, the way that he reacts to it, but I'm like, this is a very intimate first date.
Is it her idea? That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're there to get furniture for her apartment because
Right.
she's just moved. So like obviously it's her idea. They've gone and she's she's leading the vibe of the date.
Yeah.
She's the one that like goes and lies in the bed and she's like gets him to chase her through IKEA. And then she's like, just so you know, I'm not looking for anything serious. And I get when the film repeatedly is like, in her defense, she did tell you she didn't want a relationship.
Yeah.
But she doesn't act like it.
Yeah, especially at the start.
And I think she goes into it knowing how much he cares about.
or start,
her.
yeah, or his idea of like actually buying into
So
love.
it is a little bit like,
I don't know if
he's
I'm-
also been very clear about what he is
Yes.
looking for.
Yeah.
The one-
And like the way that the relationship that she's cultivating with him, I don't know why she would expect him not
Yeah,
to fall
to
in
be
love
fair
with
though,
her.
I think it's almost like maybe it's like it is very playful and silly for her to imagine these things, and then when he starts to like look at her in the bed like I could be your husband, then she goes, by the way, man, this is a bit.
I think so as well. This is when the whole unreliable narrator thing
That's
comes
very
about
good,
as well.
actually. Maybe she, yeah, right. Okay.
Maybe,
Oh my God, that's what we're
maybe
doing.
she's just asked him to come to
come to
IKEA
IKEA.
because he's got a car.
And she's literally
She wants
just,
to buy a chest of drawers.
literally, and she's literally just sat on the bed and went, yeah, that's comfy. And he just stood there with his wee bag. Like,
Love you. I love you.
marriage. And she's like, no, never. Not that vibe. Yeah,
I mean,
man.
given
That's
that
what I want. I want this film to be 4 hours long and I want to see every scene, but it's actually just the reality of it and it's him just fucking it. Even worse than he does.
Yeah, Because later on, you have these really kind of outrageous scenes. There's even a scene where he's like running through the park and there's literally a cartoon bird. So you know it's not actually happening because everybody in the park's doing a dance number and singing. So I think that this is maybe another kind of way of that. Not that, you should bring somebody that you're just dating to IKEA anyway, but maybe it has just been like we had a wee kiss in the copy room and then she's been like, oh, do you mind like helping me like bring some stuff back from IKEA? And then he is imagining that she's like, oh, I want to marry you one day. And that's not really what's happening.
I just think it's maybe, if that is what they were doing, it's maybe a little bit reckless in terms of if you're trying to convince people that or the idea is he's meant to be the worst person, or completely making it up in his head. I think you then need to be careful with having her literally be leading him in. You need to maybe signal that is a fantastical scene more, because they do that later. Like they'll tell you if it's actually bullshit. So I don't know. I get it's.
I suppose it's like that's what the good thing about it though is that it's up to interpretation. So like
I guess.
it's kind of
it
like
just depends on how much of an interpretation we think. Like because we've pretty firmly, the three of us agree that he's more in the wrong. Do we think it's 100% he's like fully just an asshole, or
I think that like it's not that she should be responsible for how he responds to things, but I do think watching the film again, I'm like, you knew from day one that he was absolutely like, it's totally obsessed with you.
yeah,
Maybe not even love, because it's like an infatuation.
yeah.
But it's like, especially in the beginning, like you said, because she does withdraw from him. Like, I'm like, you were clear about what you wanted, but you also heard it when he said that he believes in love and he thinks that like your opinion is wrong as well. So it's kind of like in both senses, like, why did you bothered doing this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
never going to go.
But then that's what
well.
happens, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing it as I'm saying it.
So maybe there is actually quite a lot of nuance to that then, in the sense of they're both kind of like playing with the idea of it. She's playing with the idea of it, but he actually he's very willing to go along with that play because it's at least close to the actual
See,
thing.
it's a lot deeper of a film than you think it is.
Actually, this is our most intellectual conversation
Yeah, I
I've
know.
ever had.
Ever thought. But just while we're on it, the one thing that I picked up this time I watched the film that I'd never ever picked up on before, and it honestly put the whole film in a different light for me in terms of her role in this,
Yeah.
is spoilers. Once they've broken up, they go through various changes in their life. They kind of re-meet again. And, you know, he's finally starting to get over her. She's moved on in her life. And she says to him she's met someone else. And he's like, what's different? And she says, I just woke up one day and I was sure of something that I was never sure of with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting to me because that means that she was also in that relationship possibly looking for it to work, like wanting to fall in love with
Yeah,
him.
yeah, like wanting to be
So
proven
she's
wrong.
obviously-
She wanted to be proven wrong almost.
It's almost
Yeah.
like she's put in a disclaimer, like I don't think this is going to work, so that she is like, so that she kind of can say, well, I always told you I didn't want a relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that statement suggests that even in the moment in the relationship, she was also
Into it.
into it.
Yeah.
And, like,
or
was-
into the idea that this could maybe go
They
further.
could go further.
Yeah.
But again, that's also very realistic because
Yeah.
you can't really hold that against someone because everyone would do that. Everyone does that, and that's how
Yes.
you have to be able to do relationships.
It's a deep film, man.
Yeah.
What can I say?
And also, it's not.
Also,
And also, we're impossibly giving this far too much thought.
I think there's just a lot of
So after the kind of whole IKEA thing, they're obviously in bed and they're kind of like, the idea there is that they're looking at each other like I want to fuck you, and then the next thing is that they do go and fuck. Do they?
I think so,
Yeah, they leave IKEA, they go back to his place.
Yeah, and they go and
Yeah.
have sex, and then this is after this happens is when he goes to the park the next day, and it's this really fantastical scene, and it's what's that song?
You're making my dreams come true.
He's
Yeah.
dancing down the park, and there's a wee like Looney Tunes bird flying about. And I was like, all right,
Yeah,
I get it.
I
Well,
mean,
the thing is,
you
no,
weren't,
bullshit,
I
bullshit,
get it.
bullshit.
You were like,
No, bullshit, no,
I know that feeling. I've been
Hold-
that guy. That happens to me all the time.
Oh man, this film is kind of class, isn't it?
Okay.
This is like just before we recorded this, by the way. We were speaking to Cammie's dad, and he was like, "Oh, I've seen this film. It's about shite in it." And Swanny was like, "Yeah, fucking yeah, this film's about shit,
Whoa.
man." But when he was watching it, he was like, "Oh, that's
No,
so
no,
me."
no. Right, let's get a little bit of clarification there. Yes.
Cool guy Callum.
Yes, I did kind of. As soon as I spoke there, I was like, yeah, we get it. I then immediately was like, that's not what you were saying when you were watching it. And then the two fucking jackals,
It was honestly-
the fucking
it was like-
hyenas leapt in. No, the point I was making is, it was very over the top, and it's a very obvious way of doing, oh, a guy's just had sex with someone that he really loves. Amazing. But when you see it and it's done in the context of that film, you're like, oh shit, absolutely, that's what it's like that sort of, oh, fuck yeah, woo, everything's amazing, this is class.
So he's pretty happy.
So it's pretty happy, and I did enjoy that. That was reflective.
And then, we have kind of, is there a montage of their relationship? We don't get a lot of their, like, the middle part of their
Yeah,
relationship.
we don't see a lot of the good, and honestly, like it's
We don't see a lot of the 500 Days of Summer, you could say. Funnily enough.
we see it start to kind of go south pretty quickly.
Deteriorate, yeah. So like there's a scene where they're in a record shop. That's a kind of positive scene, and she's kind of pointing out records, and they're just having a wee chat about cool music and what they're into and stuff like that. And then
I feel like the turning point when is the first time that you start to see it kind of go a bit sour is when he is in a bar with her and this guy's been really creepy and it keeps hitting on her.
yeah, and
it's
then
like-
he turns around and ends up punching the guy because he's like, oh, this guy, like you're really on a date with this guy, like that's embarrassing.
Little Tommy Spummer standing there like getting all raging, and there's a little Bill-up incel punch. And he's like, I protected you, my lady. And then she's like, fuck off. That was awful. I'm so embarrassed. That's my favourite bar. I know that guy. He's a family friend. He's a bit of a weirdo. And you barred him. That's maybe a bit too far.
Wait, so if this is, and I know obviously in this case it
And
probably
again,
isn't.
this is again, I think, where I would probably say this is unreliable narrator stuff, because nobody
I thought we were going to say.
accosts men like that. Nobody's like, you're on a date with this guy, this chump, because it wasn't
It's
like
so
they even
over
That
the
portrayed
top.
it.
did happen to you on Cammie's first date with you.
Oh, it did. It did happen. It happened actually even more obscenely than it happens in 500 Days of Summer.
That's why you pulled him after he was like, William Wallace never got to do this.
Yeah.
Because what you'd seen right before that was
That was-
Stephen Boggin guy being like,
So what had
"Wench
happened-
me."
So, no, I wish he had said, oh, winch me, because it would have been better than what he actually did. I was sitting in nice and sleazies. I'd had maybe 2 drinks by this point, so I wasn't like steaming or anything. Cammie's like, right, I'm going to go and get some drinks at the bar. He leaves. I catch eyes with this guy across the bar because he's staring at me. And he just kind of, obviously, if you're listening to this, you won't be able to see, but I'll describe it. He literally just goes like this. So he puts, like, he makes a circle with his fingers and he puts his finger, like, the limmy bit.
Yeah.
Like,
He does
he's,
like the
he's
universal-
rhyming fucking.
The universal symbol for sex.
He
Yes,
makes an
uh-huh.
obscene gesture.
And then, yes, he
That's
does.
a good way of doing it, Abigail.
And then he kind of goes,
And he just shrugs.
yeah, like, yes. And I go, and he puts his thumb up, and I go, no, I'm okay. And I'm like shaking my head, and he's like, thumb up, thumb to the side. I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks. Right. And then he kind of wanders away. Cammie comes back, and I'm like, you'll never guess what just happened. Like, this is so odd that I don't even think you're going to believe me. This guy's just done this. I don't know where he's gone. And he was, oh yeah, don't know where he's gone. Like, it made me feel like I was lying, because I was like,
Cammie
this guy's
has also
just.
later admitted that he thought that you were just trying to make him jealous.
Yeah,
What is wrong with this chick?
Also, I remembered how I brought up William Wallace, by the way.
How did you bring up William Wallace, big man?
It was a callback to that guy, and I was basically just making a joke like, this is how you really seduce a woman. You talk to her for ages and talk about William Wallace, and then you get to win her.
Okay, that's actually
Right.
a lot better than.
That is so much better than what you made it sound like.
I don't know if that's true.
Claude's on lie detector
Somebody
duty.
is telling fibs.
Or,
I mean, a lot of fibbing
or
going on.
maybe what you're seeing is one of them's the reality, one of them's the fantasy. Which one's which? Who knows? Back
Two
to the fucking
unreliable
film.
narrators.
So, yeah, so Cammie comes back, he's like, I'm like, oh my God, this guy did this. I can't believe this, right? And then the guy comes over and he sits next to us and he's like, just give me his phone as in put your number in that. And then Cammie's like, listen, man, this isn't how you ask out women. Starts like basically coaching the guy. He's like, listen, man, like, I know you're trying, but I'm actually on a date with this lassie. Try again, but no like this. And like just kind of give him a bit of advice. You think that's the end of him because he fucks off? No. And then I'd like see him across the bar accosting another lassie, and I'm like, why is he accosting that really pretty lassie? And it turns out it's my pal. And then I'm like, who's this guy?
Rogue.
So yeah, maybe folk are like that, I guess. But Cammie didn't punch them, so that's why we're still together, I guess.
So there you go. Exactly. That's why you're still together, because Cammie didn't just slap a guy.
Although, if Cammie had just battered a
You'd
guy,
have been shagging in the car. I mean, on the streets. For the whole town to see.
my mum listens to this, man.
Do you want to go back then?
Go back.
Go back to the time before we asked Swanny to be on a podcast with us.
Anyway.
That's the line, sure.
Anyway, so she's not too happy with this. She was like, listen, I didn't need protected, and like that was just weird. Like it was just a guy being an arsehole, and you fucking really took it too far, man.
And then he goes, he has the worst reaction. He's like, I did this for you. I got this for you. I took this injury for you. It's like, mate,
Nobody asked
no
you to
one
do that.
pushed you, and also it wasn't the vibe, and also my favourite bar, my dad's pal, you know, like, fuck off.
So she leaves, and then he's pure like greeting guy. And he's like,
They're
oh.
punching things as well.
Yeah, because they go back to her flat, and then she kind of kicks him out, and he's just like, he starts
How could you do
shouting at
this to
people
me?
in the street.
He's like, how could you do this to me, you absolute bitch? I did that. And you're like, man, the incel
Yeah.
energy is so
He-
strong.
he-
This
again,
guy.
he does make one good point in that,
Yeah.
where she's like, I can't remember what it is that she says, but she's like, I didn't like. don't know what this is, or I didn't ask for this. And he's like, don't give me that. Like, I care about you, and I know that you care about me.
Yeah.
And I deserve for you to admit that.
At least admit that you have
there's-
feelings.
Yeah.
That it's
and
more
I
than just
understand-
casual.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know,
And then it's
but like
And
if
it's
you give
everything
that
else.
guy this,
But
then
that's-
he's gonna go running with it.
That's where it's like you are still the problem, because maybe if you could just behave yourself, if you could just get the slightest bit of a grip, man,
Yeah.
then like you probably wouldn't have this issue.
Yeah.
The reason that she's been non-committal is because
you are too much.
just seem a bit mental, man.
Yeah.
Like too much. Tone it back.
Not cool enough and too shy.
I mean, like, I have been on nights out with drunker folk in like worse mental states who have not punched guys who were being a bit weird. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a bit much. Also, did he fuck?
Yeah, it's the way that he does it, and then he's kind of like, and then he gets decked. But like,
Yeah, what happens is he went, sir, mate, and then the guy just punched him. Like, shut up, man. Spit it out.
So after that, there's a bit of like, so he goes back to his flat and he's like cursing her out, and then she ends up coming over and she's like, I shouldn't have got angry at you, I'm sorry. And then they make up. But then after that, it's never really the same. Like, they go to the same record shop and there's just a bit of a weird vibe, and she's kind of brushing him off. And
Yeah, we just get tons of scenes of like montages, good songs, but in sadder songs, and we just see them doing like the same things, and it's just not the same.
yeah.
And it kind of fades away. A lot of the film is that, and I guess that's maybe one of my main issues, was the film becomes a lot like a montage.
Yeah,
I know I
but
made a
it's
joke that I
like-
want it to be a full montage.
It's
but
vibes, you know.
the songs are good. The
It's like-
soundtrack is great.
Yeah, the soundtrack is great. There is a whole kind of, not side plot, but like extra bit where Chloe Grace Moretz is his wee sister who's giving him like dating advice. And
Yeah, those are quite funny. Those are fine.
someone needs to phone like social services, because what's going on?
where's her parents?
Why is she so versed in like she's talking about things, and she's like talking about them having sex and stuff, and
Yeah.
she's talking about how she's got a boyfriend, and like I know obviously like
and she's
young
had
kids-
many boyfriends.
Yeah, and she's like, but then also at one point he's post summer breakup, like throwing plates at a wall, clearly in a violent, depressive mood, and his two adult male friends are like, oh, we've got to phone in the big guns, and then she appears, and I'm like, what? Why do these adults have your phone number and think that it's appropriate to phone like a 12-year-old lassie, and then like what's clearly late at night? I mean, like, please come and deal with your brother who's like throwing cutlery and smashing
And she's
things.
like,
Where-
oh, again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where are the
always gets like
parents?
this.
Where are your parents? Like,
Why are your parents
Also, he's
not
showing
coming
up
over
to
and
like
dealing
our
with this?
soccer games and being like, "Excuse me, coach, I'm asking my like baby sister effectively for advice about my failing relationship." And meanwhile, he's sitting there drawing pictures of Summer like stabbing him with a knife, and like
while all her sister's pals are like giggling, he's like, kind of like, huh. And you're like, what is
she's
happening?
like, "All my pals fancy it." I'm like, this situation
Is
is
he
not
an unreliable narrator because he is like literally psychotic? Has this like relationship driven him to actual psychosis?
Oh yeah, he doesn't have a sister. she's just Tyler Durden. Absolutely, that's
He's
my.
still just going to the high school soccer games.
Oh, he's always been going that. Summers. That's when he
No,
first met Summer.
no,
That's when he
no,
first
no,
met Summer.
no,
As a
no.
no, I'm not saying. Whoa, no. I mean, as a kid, he saw Summer at the soccer practice, then goes back
When
there.
he was a child.
When he was a child. Yes, Abigail. I'm not saying he's a fucking raging pedo. That is not what I'm saying. Jesus, I can see how that comes across.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what you said, though.
Yes, but that's not what I meant. Anyway, the point I'm making is there's a lot of these scenes that, going through this like scene by scene by scene, it's the same fucking shit, and it's cool, but it's like good music carries it along, in my opinion.
So eventually they break up. They go to a diner together. It's a bit of a kind of sad diner, and she's like, "Look, we've been
The first
fighting."
diner I've ever seen in my life. The food that they get served is like the worst. I bet that cost like $15 as well. These 3 burnt wee sausages and like a bit of bread. Anyway.
So she is like, "Look, we've been fighting for ages," and I guess that is as well the whole unreliable narrator thing, isn't it? Where she literally is like, "What good relationship are you talking about, man?
yeah.
We
I've just had
never get on."
I just had him. That's why we don't see the full 500 days. We see the best of it.
Yeah,
We see,
that's not
and even that's terrible because the rest of it is just him going mental all the time, and punching walls. And she's like, "Man,
They're
I
getting
just
steaming on nights out and just being really toxic to each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
and like just
That's-
falling out all the time.
yeah, that's-
She's running away. He's like punching pillows in the gaff. Like,
his sister does say that. She's like, I don't think she's the one. And the next time you look back at all of it.
Yeah.
Like, look back or look again kind of thing. So I guess this is just like one reminisce. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like dipping in and out.
Oh,
but like
this is
that's
one-
just one point in
this is
time.
one sad wank that he's having. That's what this film is.
I can't stop talking about that.
It's just very funny. One sad spum with Tommy Spummer. R.I.P. Big Man. Fucking get a grip, man.
so they break up, essentially. They're never really together.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was like 500 days. Oh, a year and a half relationship. All right, cool. Yeah, okay. I can see that that's long. That's enough time to really set roots and, the future. Oh, yeah, I can see why that would really fuck someone up. Even a year of that, even 6 months if it was something really intense and good, cool. Nah, what do we get? Like, nothing.
Yeah, imagine that.
Oh, we've both done that.
I haven't. Anyway,
This fucking bitch, man. Love it.
so they break up, and he is now just like fully leaning into just being a horrible, insane man. This is when he gets pulled up for writing "you're a whore" or whatever in the greeting cards and stuff.
Just when he has the big meltdown in the boardroom.
He has a meltdown in the boardroom, and he's like, what are we doing? These cards are lies. People don't feel things. Happy birthday? What? Like,
Yeah, it's like I remember my first breakup, man. Like legit though.
Yeah.
and then he picks up like a card with hearts on it, and he's like, oh, I know where this is going. I love you, babe. Fuck off. He's just like going mental. It's like, yeah, man, they're cards.
Yeah, it's just a card, man.
So he walks out. He's like, I quit.
Yeah.
And then he goes to loads of different schools or not schools, but like tries to get a job as an architect.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't get them because
He's got a big chalk wall,
yeah,
and he just seems to spend a lot of time like
drawing the New York skyline
Yeah,
that already
again
exists.
and again and again.
Yeah, and getting rejected from jobs that he's clearly not qualified for.
He's just showing up. No CV. His CV is went to
God,
uni
this
like
guy.
7 years ago. Worked at a card factory, and here's a drawing of the New York skyline.
Punches walls.
Not here's a drawing of the New York skyline because it's on his bedroom wall. Like, what is he just going down and be like? Yeah, so I this is just like probably like
I got
it's
you
just like really
Polaroids.
weird and unusual, but like I like to draw.
Listen. If you will, my 12-year-old sister has set up an MSN Skype. We'll see it. And it's like this bloody image. Yeah, that's the skyline, I guess.
He's just going into these offices. Like they're not even looking for people to hire. He's just going into these offices and like dropping his wee notepad and being like, oh, did someone drop that? Oh, is that mine? Oh my goodness. Oh,
God,
like just
God. I
And they're just
go
like-
so wild in my designs.
And they're just like, "Hi, man. Here's our email address.
We're no
send us
we're
over
no
something."
hiring. Here's the email address. We're no hiring. Bye.
when this was filmed, like he's going in and being like, yeah, so my dream is to redesign the New York skyline.
It's like, mate-
mate, we're in a fucking recession.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the financial crash has just happened, mate. We're not building fucking anything.
We're not hiding.
We're not even
not
repairing.
building.
We're not even repairing the skyline. Oh, really, really
folk
funny.
walking out in the middle of it because they've been made redundant."
Man, aye. So it kind of just, he leaves there, and then that just kind of builds up with him. We get a fun little montage of him just being sad in bed, and that was okay. That was fine. Went through a few days.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure at that point we just kind of come towards the actual ending itself, which is on the bench.
Yeah.
For me, anyway, that's
No, so first of all, we have a moment of hope for Tom.
Yes, of
Oh,
course. So
fuck yeah,
before
this
that,
section.
this is the section I was talking about earlier where it shows like the reality of the situation and his interpretation of a
was
situation.
it.
Or not his interpretation, but his expectations of a situation.
it's reality versus fantasy. basically.
So he goes to a wedding first of all, and Summer's there, and it's like a colleague they've had. This is after they've broken up, but they meet on the bus and then they end up chatting the whole way there. And it's kind of presumed that maybe they're the only two people that each other know, so they end up spending the whole wedding together, and they're like dancing, to like slow songs because it's a wedding and stuff
And this
like
is
that.
the fantasy version of it.
No, this really happens, right? And then she's like, "Look, I'm having a like housewarming party next week. Do you want to come?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, great. This is all back on, I guess." So he shows up and he's like, he thinks that they have it like literally side by side. And in his head, he shows up and she gives him like a big kiss. And then he gives her a card and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing." But really, he just opens the door and she's just like, hiya, here's my
hey,
house. And then they walk in, she's having like a rooftop party in his head, like the entire time she's just talking to him, but really she's like, oh, have you met my friend blah, and just like doing normal party chat. And then it ends with him noticing that she has got an engagement ring on, so he absolutely spums the bed and leaves,
storms down the
He
stairs.
just runs out.
But, like,
Which, to be honest, like,
fair.
yeah.
And look, and he does, and they later bring up that you should have told me, and she's like, well, yeah, I should have, but also it wasn't the vibe, and it just happened, and like she probably should have said something. But that doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean just because she's did one little thing wrong, but he gets to be a maniac.
No.
yeah.
And just go full, you're the worst cat in the world. Like, you can't do that.
But he also doesn't do that, to be fair to him. He just removes himself from the situation in a very dramatic way. But we've also been...
Yeah, okay, fair. Okay, you know what? Fair enough. You're right. Because it's told non-linearly,
Yeah.
I forget that he's already done all the mental stuff at this point. That makes it, yeah, fair play to him. He does just leave.
Yeah.
And
Which I've been in situations like things like that. You're like, yeah.
this
I'm
is
gonna
the
go.
thing. I don't think she had to tell him that she was engaged, but she also shouldn't have invited him to the party without telling him that he was like. It was just the inviting him,
Yeah.
but not telling him. But like, this is the thing where I get it though. I get her perspective where you have this relationship with someone. It probably means more to you than you ever admitted to them.
Yeah.
You know that they're still into you. You have this kind of intimate moment. You're remembering lots of nice things. You feel that closeness with somebody again, and you're like, oh, I really want this person to
Yeah.
see my new place, and like, you
Can
know,
we be friends?
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah.
You know, can I save that connection?
And
Was
the
that
intimacy of that moment? You're like, oh, like this person's really special to me, and then you're like, I've just invited my ex-boyfriend to a party at my house with my like new husband who
To be.
he doesn't know exists.
Oh, and
That's maybe
everyone's
not-
everyone's going to be asking me about the wedding ring because
Yeah.
it's or the engagement because
But
it
I
just
don't want
happened.
to uninvite him.
And I don't want to bring that up to him because shit.
Yeah, and
No,
then it's like,
and that makes sense why when she opens the door she's like,
Hi.
She's waiting for it
and
to go
then he's
mental.
like, I bought you this.
Bracing for impact.
He's like, I bought you this gift, and she's like, excellent.
Oh, fuck off. No.
And it's like, it's kind of her fault, but also I get it. Like, I get
She's
it.
going into the bathroom, just looking at herself in the mirror like, you're stupid. You're fucking stupid. Of course he would do this. And go to
Because you've had enough time away from him to forget how fucking shocking it can be.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
suddenly it's all coming back. You're like,
Oh,
no.
this is why we broke up.
Yeah. Well, he spums down the stairs and gets it there, so it's fine. That's good. Fucking slips on his spum on the way out. Fuck him.
Well, this is the thing as well. It's like, yeah, sure, maybe she shouldn't have done that, but also, like, let's be real. In our most evil versions of ourselves, if somebody is absolutely fawning over you and they're being a bit pathetic about it and you don't really have to kind of put much effort into it, that's a nice wee confidence boost.
Well, this is the thing. Every single thing that a character in this film has done that
True.
you get frustrated at, you're like, I've done a version of this
Yes.
before when I've either been that person who cares about someone but not as much as they care about me, and you just don't know how
or
to...
vice versa.
Or vice versa. Because we've all been one or the other at different times.
Yeah.
Claude's going to be like, not me. I've always been...
No.
No, we've all been one of the
We've
other.
all been one of
Yeah,
them.
no.
Yeah, no.
I was just waiting for the... I was trying...
Oh, no.
And everyone
I've been a wee
has.
pathetic.
Oh, I know that. Just waiting you to admit it now. This is all just me getting you to say that. This whole podcast is me getting you to say that. We'll talk about Ask FM on this one day.
Yeah, not today.
Not today.
Yeah, no, I'd like, but the same kind of things happened, except that with me, it's always been, except for like actual relationships, it's always been guys that I've been wanting to be pals with who have pretended that they were gay and were just fully not. Which has somehow happened to me twice.
Yeah, weird that it's happened twice. That's bizarre.
That I can't relate to that.
Like done a Kick-Ass. Have
Yeah,
you seen
yeah,
Kick-Ass?
yeah.
In Kick-Ass, he like the main character really fancies his lassie, and she just assumes that he's gay, so he just goes with it. And then she's like inviting him over for a sleepover, so he can like do her back tan and stuff like that. And he's just like,
Relax.
To be fair, this has happened to you.
When?
We were in a nightclub and Swanny was dancing with this girl who he thought was single because she was
Oh my
like
God,
grinding
yeah.
on him.
Oh.
And because she thought Swanny was gay, she was just like, woo, this is so fun. And her boyfriend was there.
Standing
And I
right
was like-
next to them.
And I was like nearly single, just being like, yeah, what the fuck,
this
we'll do
single girl wants to
anything.
dance with me. And she's like, woo, this like really outgoing, like gregarious guy who's like
Yeah,
dancing, like,
don't enjoy that.
you know, absolutely tearing up the dance floor. Oh, this is great. I'll dance with him because, you know, our boyfriend wasn't that kind of vibe. And he's just standing with like a beer, like just dancing like awkwardly, like looking at
all I'll
them.
say is they're broken up now, so who cares? I'm fine. Vindication. That was the first crack in that beautiful plate. You know, and if that's what I can be for someone, then I will. Anyway,
So
kind of coming towards the final scene. I'd say.
yes, the conclusion is that he's sitting. Well, not the final conclusion. The final conclusion is coming. He is sitting on a bench that he kind of frequents to, surprise, surprise, draw the New York skyline. Like it's up a fucking hill. So he's just sitting there, like
And
doing
they've been
that.
there before. Summer's been on
He's
the
had a
date, yeah.
haircut. It's supposed to have suggested that time has passed. And she shows up and she's like, oh, I thought I'd see you here one day. Ever since you took me here one day, like I've
Yeah,
always
bump
loved
into
it.
you.
And then they kind of have a bit of a closure chat and he's kind of like, why? And that's when she's like, well, you know, I woke up one day knowing something with this guy that I didn't know with you, kind of thing.
Yeah, and she
Which is very
basically
real
was like,
and very honest. Again, she's always been pretty honest. She's meant to be honest with her own feelings, but she's been honest
With him.
with him.
Yeah.
With as much as she can be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is
And she says to him as well, she was like, no, you were right about love, you were right about fate, but you were wrong about me.
Uh-huh.
And I always think that like that must suck to hear, but it's also probably quite
yeah.
That's-
Well,
that's-
again,
he needs to
I've
hear.
experienced,
Yeah.
I've experienced that as well. I've been in a few relationships, and sometimes it gets to the point where, like, yeah, this is as far as it's going to go, and it sucks, but
yeah.
it is life.
But I've been the person trying to convince someone of that, being
Yeah.
like, no, don't like change your views. Like this just
Yeah.
isn't right. But it's not the end of the world. I've also been the person who's like, there is absolutely nothing worse than being like so into someone and them telling you something that you know is like objectively correct, but you're just like, I don't want you to be right now. I don't want to feel patronized by you in this moment.
Yeah,
Just
you're
let
you're
me.
not in the right.
And to be fair, at the whole thing, we've been kind of ribbing this guy for being a bit mental, and he is, but I can also relate to that as well. The first time I think I was ever dumped from a serious relationship, I did the full 9 yards, like screaming, throwing shit at him. I was like, had printed photos of him and I was frisbeeing them at his face, like in between being like, you are a fucking cunt.
Well, there you go.
Went absolutely mental, like throwing clothes out the window type of thing. So I get it.
Yeah. I feel like
even though clearly from that reaction, that relationship was never meant to be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, that's what this film is, because as you say, even though it's mental thing, you're like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, that's been me at
tracks.
some point. So they have a wee closure moment, and she's like, basically, good luck.
I'm glad. I hope you're happy.
Yeah.
I want you to be happy. Blah blah blah.
And he's obviously still not completely over it.
But he does his best, and he goes, "I want you to be happy too." Essentially, and it's like, okay, as
Yeah.
good as it can be. And then
They part.
And
then he's going for another job. And
yep, finally gets an interview. 500 days later.
And he goes and sits outside, and there's another lassie there, and they're like, oh, competition. And then they have a bit of a chat, and they're like kind of vibing a wee bit. And
He basically, eventually, after humming and hawing back and forth, having a weird chat with the narrator for some reason, decides to go, you know what, I'm going to ask her for a drink.
yeah, do you want to go for a drink after this? And then she's like, oh, why not? And then he's like, oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't ask you what your name was, which is so typical Tommy Spum. And she's like, oh, my name is Autumn. Autumn?
Yep.
Yep, Autumn.
Yeah. And that's the end.
And then it's like goes to back from day 500 to day one.
Which is a bit of a kick in the balls. Because at first I was like, oh, it's kind of cute. Yeah, it's going to repeat. But then thinking about it, if this is meant to be him learning how not to do...
But I think that's the point. I think that it's like he's
He's
not
not
going to
learning.
learn.
Yeah, he's not gonna learn, which
He's just
is-
going to do the exact same thing
Well,
with
let me
another
tell you
lassie.
how this went. This was one day of autumn. right? Because he went for the job interview, so did she. He met her in the bar afterwards. She gets a phone call. You've got the job. He's not. He's jealous.
Glasses
he
out.
feels inferior. He's raging about it. He can't hide the fact that he's bitter. He's like, Summer would never have done this to me. She's like, who?
Yeah.
Just gets steaming, absolutely shits the bed.
Oh my
and
God.
so she's like, that guy was an absolute freak. I'm never phoning him.
Yeah.
And then he stopped.
And that's why there's no sequel.
Good.
So that's the end of 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 17 days of summer. And 4 montages. Oh, fuck. Who cares? But yes. So yeah, you know, it was quite well received when it kind of came out. It was got a bit of a cult following. It got a bit of a critical reassessment. People kind of bashing it a bit. And I think, again, it's kind of come back round of like, well, no, that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just missed it the first time. Ratings-wise, again, I think it could be a little bit shorter. Some of the montages, he annoys me. The side characters, there's not really any real fun side characters. We don't even pick the rogue. There's not really a rogue. I guess maybe the
Steaming Pal.
Stephen Pal or the boss. The boss is like, oh, you're depressed and saying fuck you, whore. You should be writing condolence cards.
He says something else roguish as well,
Yeah,
doesn't he?
but again,
Earlier
it's
on in the
not
film,
really
but I
stuck.
can't remember what it is, so it clearly wasn't rogue enough for me to remember.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I would probably go with him because
That's obscene.
Yeah, obviously the rogue is the character that's most out of place within that world and has a whole implied narrative. And for me, it's probably the guy going, you know what, based on my work experience, you are being really misogynistic in your cards now. That means you need to write funeral cards. I think that's quite funny.
That is quite roguish,
So I'm going to
yeah.
pick that because I don't want to pick him because he is the rogue and fuck him.
Yeah. Fuck him.
He's wanting Tommy to walk into the office being like, I don't know, you've lost your grandma, and then inside it says, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, that's the kind of vibe that he
Totally.
is encouraging.
So that'd be my pick for the rogue for this episode.
No, I would agree with that.
In terms of ratings, I think, as I say, a little bit shorter. I say it with most things. I think, again, side character could be more fun side characters. I really enjoy the central performances for both of them, and I do quite like. We have had quite a stimulating conversation about it. And there's a level of there's something there with it, and it is. It's not as funny as it could be. It's not as dramatic as it should be, but the kind of fantastical things work quite well. It's doing something a bit different with a normal formula. I think it's pretty decent. I give it like a 6.
Okay. That sounds
like
good.
a solid 6. I think the last 4 or 5 films I've done have been 6s
Yeah.
for very different reasons.
I think every single film on this series you've done has been a 6. Because what did you give Truly Madly Deeply?
6.
Yeah, every film you've given, so what, High School Musical?
Well, little bit of a 6, beefy 5.
Yeah, but you ultimately said a 6. That was your conclusion for June.
Yeah, and it should be an 8 if you do the expanded version. But anyway.
Anyway, rating, Abby.
So every time I watch this film, it kind of changes. But genuinely, this time I was like, the soundtrack was great, the vibes were great. I'm usually just there to feel the vibes. I'm like, I like the vibes of this film, and like you're saying, like it's doing something that at the time felt a bit like different, and now you look back and it feels kind of gimmicky, to be honest.
Yeah, it is
But,
gimmicky.
like at the same time, you know, it's kind of like colour by numbers symbolism and stuff. Like I saw something the other day about how they designed everything in the film to be blue because of the colour of Zooey Deschanel's eyes, and that's like how he sees the world. It's also keyed into her, and like it's doing something like that, and like even things like this.
It's above the average rom-com.
Yeah,
It's got something to say.
The visual design of the film and stuff like that as well. Like, see when she speaks to him on the bench at the end, and she just looks completely different to
it's
how she's
great.
looked in the rest of the film, and it's just like the colours they've dressed her in, and like the style of her and everything. She's so much less quirky, and it's like, is this maybe how she's always looked? And he just sees her with a different. And I like stuff like that. So I think the film does have its merits, and it's obviously given us a lot to think about.
Totally.
And I honestly would have maybe given it a 7 if it weren't for the fact that we've gone through this entire thing being like, actually, do you know what? This film is quite nuanced. There's more to discover here. And then in the least nuanced ending ever, you know that noise that your AirPods make when they start to run out of battery? She goes, Autumn. And I just hear, boom. Literally just like, I feel a point.
See,
being
it's
detracted
weird.
in that
It's
moment.
weird because we talk about it again, talking about it there again. I feel exactly the same. But when I watched that, I remember being a bit like, oh no, that makes perfect sense. Because it's obviously we moved from relationship to relationships. He's going to start again. Hopefully it'll be a good one this time. But I think looking at it in the context of the numbers being the 500 days of bullshit, I think the fact that the timer starts again, we're about to start another round of bullshit.
It's more just the fact that it's like, he is reading into this interaction so much more because her name is Autumn.
Yeah.
He is so like main character centric.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
I
he thinks
suppose-
that this is, and it just I'm like, ugh. I
what would
learned
you- what would you
nothing.
give it then?
If you were
It's a 6.
6.
For that reason.
Yeah, cool.
If you were gonna read into that more from the kind of way that I've read the film so far, is maybe she's not Autumn, but that's supposed to be like a kind of the point that it's making is that she's moved on, she's changed her life, she's like a different person, and he's just the same person. So it's not necessarily that this lassie is actually Autumn, but more so just that he is just seeing this, like the next girlfriend he's going out with is the next season, like, and he's just going to do the
Which is
exact
kind
same
of what
thing.
we were, I guess, what we're arguing is.
Like it's a bit, it's very on the nose.
We don't like that. We want them to have gotten over it a little bit.
Yeah, but I
Again,
suppose
it's more realistic.
Yeah, it's more realistic, but also I think that it kind of sides more with the idea that this film is not on his side.
Yeah.
Is that like they've shown that she can move on from things and that he is just a wee incel freak, and he's not really done anything to redeem himself. So I don't understand why he should get an ending that redeems himself in any way either.
That's true.
You know, so for that, I think it's a pretty good film. I love the soundtrack. I love the vibes. It makes me very nostalgic for being in school and stuff like that. I like Zooey Deschanel. I like the performances in it. The side characters, like you say, are a bit shite. I really like Regina Spektor in particular, and there's a couple of Regina Spektor songs in this. I really like it. I'd probably give it like an 8, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can see that. Cool.
And it's fairly short as well. I know that
Yeah.
you say it's too long, but it's like for films that nowadays that are all like 3 fucking hours long, it's like an hour 40 or something like that, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'll give it an 8.
Yeah. Nice.
Nice. So, yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Do we know what we're doing next week?
It's
my pick.
Abby's pick.
Or are we doing, when are we doing the superhero film?
That could be your pick.
We had some, there was a system in place for it not to be anyone's pick, and I've forgotten what that system was.
Oh, that's the system that you made up in your head.
Well, hear me argue about that next week. Do you know what you're picking, Abigail?
Not yet. I'll give it some thought.
Cool.
Cool.
So, Madam Webb. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.